Staff meeting Thursday, April 27th, 2023. We've just had we spent over an hour already on business. So see how we do here. We just want to cover some, does everybody else have any, I mean, I want to talk, I'm just going to throw out topics. Does anybody else have anything they want to cover today? I have to wait. No, I know. Well, Brandon's doing something else. Luke hasn't got any ideas.
All my big things are local, so
Okay. Well, what do you think about the impact of all the firing of these news people? Right, because it's quite a few people over the course of the week, right? It's like 5 or 6 of them. So what's going on, do you think?
They're changing the narrative. We're done with those talking heads now. They have different directionality on the thing, or a tighter directionality, and those people cause waves. Or maybe not Don Lemon, but they're going to change narratives too.
Well, Carlson wasn't exactly our guy, but he was the only one on TV that gave audience anything resembling the truth.
Yes. One of the things that bothers me is that they talk about the lie that the election was unfair. People just believed it. It's not a lie if you believe it. I mean, they believe that the election was unfair, was tampered with. And from our perspective, well, I mean, it may have been procedurally, the tampering may have been procedurally legitimate under the rules, but we just still view it as an illegitimate election.
one of the benefits it offers the narrative is it sends the signal that none of you are big enough to escape us.
Right. Well, I mean, my understanding of the Carlson thing is that remember that when the biggest problem you get into in lawsuits is the discovery process, which allows people to basically destroy your life, rummage through your life and destroy it. And we don't have you can ask for an intermediary to do these things anonymously. And then of course we have we don't have the difference between the lawyer and the advocate like they do in the UK, right? So there's this conflict there too. So there's no separation there. So and then we don't have defense against constructive criminal. In other words, it's called construction in the law, which is creating a narrative. And we don't have defense against defamation anymore. So all these things become a way of destroying people in public. It's basically canceling. Which is a real damage, right? The court may decide something that might be good or bad, but the process of discovery and public debate is what does you the damage. So my understanding is that at present, which could be wrong, but it's what I would do. So I'm like, just rational business decision, is they had these lawsuits, which is 2 women who are suing Carlson for this behavior. And they had the Dominion lawsuit, which was right. And so if they had settled the 2 women beforehand and stalled the Dominion lawsuit, they could have continued. But by forcing the Dominion lawsuit to get settled, they would have opened up the transparency to so much, right, that it would have further guaranteed the loss of and preventing settlement of subsequent 2 lawsuits. So they just looked at it as a simple business decision. This has cost us, $750 million, right? We got 2 more lawsuits that are going to be tainted by this one. we're gonna have to, and so they just made the business decision to cancel them. And this comes more like to what Martin was saying a few minutes ago, or a minute ago, which is that the what Carlson did intentionally was he saw the need for the disenfranchised right to have someone validate their concerns, and he made a ton of money off it, and it was incredibly effective. So but what's happened is the news industry is dying, right? These people are getting crucified. And so you have everybody saying this isn't working anymore. We got to move off of this before the public just stop. In other words, we can't get an advertiser anymore because the public doesn't want to watch us. So that's their thinking. So you've seen MSNBC is insane. You have CNN at least cutting off their people who tell the direct narrative to the liberals, and you have Fox News cutting off the people who tell their narrative. And what I think you see is an attempt by the cable news media at least to try to actually figure out how to survive by providing an editorial or a curatorial function instead. So I don't know. I mean, you have Fox. I mean, CNN was on their way to going out of business. Fox is making a lot of money, but they're going out of business through lawsuits. So, whereas the whole media sector is going out of business, and I just can't wait to see what Carlson's going to do next. I mean, the problem, you're him, right? You get paid out, right? They had to pay out his contract anyway. God knows what it is. I mean, it's like, I don't remember how many millions of dollars a year it is, but it's a lot. So it somewhat depends on how much of his contract is left. I don't know the answer. If it's a year, it's 25 million maybe. But Tucker's already got offers for 25 million or more per year to go join other networks. So it's not, he's going to show up again somehow. I just don't know when, and I can't, it's hard. I don't know enough about the industry to say when and where. Does that story sound about right to you? Yeah, okay. That's my understanding. So
No, I suspect that there were more reasons that they wanted to get rid of him.
I mean, we got it right from the people, right? So who got it? Oh, Bill Riley. I remember Bill Riley built the newsroom over there, right? So he got it from the people inside. And I'm like, okay, it's Bill. He's not one for coloring things, right? And so he has a lot of credibility. But I mean, they got rid of him. They got rid of, I mean, it's a nightmare over there. So so now the other hand is, look what Joe Rogan gets every fucking day compared to the news media. It's insane. So you imagine like Elon Musk giving Joe Rogan, and I'm just not saying Elon, but I'm just saying it. If he did the same thing with those guys and say, here's $1 billion, go build a fucking news business. Great. Well, it doesn't have to, because there's already people out there with the billions of dollars in the news business. So I don't even know what these places are. It's like OANN or something like that. You guys know these things?
Yeah.
What's the other one? So it's two of them at least. OANN was the other one. If I was one of those CEOs, I'd go out and hire all these ex-Fox people who have extraordinary credibility. Like, what's the woman's name? The hot blonde. She's on YouTube now. Let's go hire those people. You've got you instantly take over the Fox News business market. Anyway, so I'm not getting any traction by talking about this with you guys, so I think I'll just.
Well, the media networks are going to double down on what they've been doing. So they had the opportunity to call any talking head that had their own audience. They're going to lose all the Tucker fans. Not like all of these companies aren't signaling we want your business. They're signaling we don't need it. That's what ESG is. We own everything. We have everything. You'll get it from us or you won't. We'll like you or we won't. And good luck. That's why they can get away with pissing everybody off who buys their stuff.
Tucker uploaded a short clip on his Twitter yesterday, already 53 million views. He could easily just continue on Twitter if he wanted to.
And reach way more people.
He'll reach way more people.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think the companies are saying we don't need you people anymore. We have plenty of dependents.
Yeah, but they don't. Look at their revenues.
Yeah, but what do they need the revenue for? Their revenue shrinking just means they can serve their dependents and say goodbye to everyone who doesn't like what they're doing.
They're not doing this for profit, are they?
Well, the argument you're making, Brandon, is that they'd rather have a smaller
control. They'd rather have control than money. They don't need more money.
Influence than money.
Yeah.
They will be rewarded by the regime if they keep spreading its propaganda.
I mean, AOC's already doing victory laps over Tucker leaving Fox. So
it's the same. I mean, it's just
doubling down.
It's just doubling down, but it's what they always do. But I mean, I thought the same thing is like, well, I mean, if Trump isn't going to be reelected, he's unleashed. If Tucker isn't under Fox News, he's unleashed. I mean, Tucker could run for fucking president. He doesn't want to be president. But I mean, I wouldn't want to run against Trump because it'd destroy your future. But he even said Trump was out and he was being very gracious to him, right? I mean, even though Tucker's been negative, I don't know why people think Trump is stupid. He's absolutely fucking not. Just don't get it.
Because they can understand what he's saying and they're stupid, so they think he must be also.
Arguments on the right was that he was naive, that instead of draining the swamp, he continued in it. And of course, swamp got rid of him.
That he was naive is probably true. My argument is he didn't expect to win. Because he clearly didn't. Right? He clearly did. You end up winning. And so once he won, he's like, he did what a Trump would do, which is try to create a legacy by governing. He's a very heroic guy. He's very military. It's what you want in a king, frankly. And so, but he got in there and it turns out that, holy shit, people don't do what the fuck you tell them. And this whole goddamn system's trying to wipe him out. So, all right. Any other topics this week? What do we got to work with? Let's see if I can pull up some tips here. Jerry Springer's dead. That's funny. I don't know why it's funny. One of the things I want to talk about is Erdogan. Noticed yesterday, he had some sort of health problem yesterday. He's probably just having a stomach bug. Within 10 minutes, a Russian ambassador had tried to poison him. He'd had a heart attack. You know, I mean, I was like, I don't know, there was a whole bunch of conspiracy theories out there. Anyway, we don't know what's really true, but you know, it looks like to me, he's just. Have you ever guys had a stomach bug and it's made you want to faint? Yeah, I have. No, not you, Martin. No, I'm trying to.
I mean, not any that has made me want to faint.
I mean, like having nausea so bad?
No, it's just because your blood pressure goes really low because your body, you're basically overtired and you're continuing to work at a hard level, and all of a sudden you're in a stressful situation. Your body goes, "Hey, fuck you," and then your blood pressure drops and you get really dizzy and whatever. So anyway, so it was awesome. And then there was the Putin rushes to the Kremlin at late at night. And so the coordination between those two, and like, can we have a fact here, please? Just one. Anyway, what I was thinking about was Erdogan, and you know, as a Westerner, he does things we absolutely think would be horrible. And it's mostly, you know, for me, it's his economic policy. But the rest of it's, he's like trying to govern Turkey, not fucking Kansas. And so, you know, I look at the guy and I'm like, pretty smart. You know, pretty smart. I mean, I don't agree with him, but I'm saying he's not incompetent, right? And I was kind of thinking like, well, he's going to probably get voted out of office this week anyway. So, but why? I was trying to figure out why I felt bad for him, and the answer is that there are plenty of people who are plenty of authoritarian guys who run countries, and do so for selfish reasons. But he doesn't do that. He runs it for the benefit of his country. Right? Does that make sense? And so it's kind of easy to, it's hard for me to disrespect a guy or feel bad for, you know, celebrate an illness or potential defeat of someone. I hope he gets defeated because it's time for mostly because of his economic policies. Sure, he's illiberal and does all these other games, and sure he's, you know, helped the Islamic side come back into a little more influence versus the secular side. But and you can complain about all that, but and sure he's agitated against Greece, which I thought was really fucking stupid. And I suppose it was just posturing for the purpose of nationalism. But you know, it's hard to want a leader like that it's hard to hate a guy like that. Anyway, I was wondering if you had anybody opinions on the Erdogan Turkey thing.
Well, I didn't hear about that, but we would certainly, well, most of Western nations would be better off with a leader like that at this point.
What do you think about Turkey and NATO? My position is they shouldn't be in NATO. Of course, my real position is we should take back Constantinople, right? But
That's my position too.
Sorry?
Yeah, this is my position too.
Yes.
The purpose of the European Union.
One of the things that's really fun with the Turks is to tell them, well, none of you are actually Turkish. You're actually all Greek. And when you show them genetic evidence and it makes them pissed off. I don't know why I think that's so funny.
And fun thing to do with Greeks is to tell them that they're Turkish.
So mean. You're not quite far. Where does? So I'm going to pull up the map. How much how much contact do you guys have with the Slovakia?
Contact in what sense?
Well, I mean, is there like there used to be a relation, an integrated sort of country thing, right? Then you separated. But do you consider them like you do the Germans, or do you consider them as very different?
It was very similar.
Very similar, right?
And many still think of them as brothers.
Yes.
And I mean, the separation of Czechs and Slovaks was a great example of how democracy works. Most people voted against it, and then it happened anyway.
Now, what about the Hungarians?
And nobody can understand what they're saying, but similar interests.
Okay.
And the whole Visegrad bloc.
Right, that's my understanding. And then, but when do things change? When you get down into Yugoslavia? In other words, where is the cultural break? The big difference happen?
I mean, I think those countries are still maybe more similar to us than countries further west.
Yes.
Because they're not going crazy with what we call liberalism.
I see. That's smart.
But it's only a matter of time
Before they go crazy, is that what you're saying?
before it's imposed on them.
I think we can fix that.
I know it's in our universities.
Isn't that what joining NATO means these days?
Yes. And primary goal of NATO is spreading homosexuality.
Right.
The real flag is the rainbow flag.
I don't know
It's
why
like,
you guys can't just legislate your way out of it. I mean,
It's-
Hungary did.
Wide scale prostitution. We'll give you money, but we get to fuck you.
I don't know why that's coming out of NATO. Where's that coming from? It's not coming from NATO.
Well, it's coming from America. Hungary was only somewhat immune to it because they have basically a dictator. He even changed the constitutions so that it's very hard to vote him out.
Yeah.
And this turned out to be for people's benefit.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I got the answer to the question I was looking for, which was, what are the criteria by which we develop affinities for other countries nearby? And it's basically morality, is what you're saying, called morality. I don't think there's anything else really interesting going on to talk about. So, today. Yesterday, somebody put out a wonderful little tweet, and it was why my allergies are kicking in right now. It was about what Twitter had accomplished. I think I have this here. Yes. Let's see if I can put this in a new window. I have a reason for asking this question. So this is a list of things that got done in the past 6 months. I'm kind of impressed. This is what I didn't expect, is I didn't expect to get. Well, that's not anything like the 4 billion Facebook users, right? But it's still a lot of people. What have you looked at this subscription for creators function yet? No, nobody's looked at that.
Well, I've seen some people using it. I haven't subscribed to any of them.
I can't, I'm trying to figure out why I feel they didn't do it right. I think it's because you need to have your people you're subscribed to. I liked this. This clarity was great. This was great. I don't know why I mean, I know they did that, but I don't know why that's so important. And I don't think the data's here, but I checked the data on, I checked this data, child porn, hate speech, I checked all that and that's all true.
I'm not sure about bots and scams because before I was banned, I don't remember seeing them, and now they're in my DMs all the time. Sometimes reply to my tweets. Some scummy bots.
I get that. I get at least one a day, sure. You gonna say something, Luke?
No, I just was asking what he was talking about, the bots.
Um,
Some of that might just be due to an increase in exposure or an improvement in exposure.
mhm,
Right? There's probably fewer bots, but we're being in front of them more frequently.
mhm. My big thing is long form tweets, the reduction of bots, the improvement in quality of ads. Like the ads I'm getting are now, I've actually clicked on some, which is really weird. I actually view community notes every day, which I think is fascinating. Because it's like fucking comedy. Right, I mean, it's like a comedy channel. All the community notes, like, you know, this was said this way, and this was said this way, and this is what was really said.
And
So
it's amusing when they're correcting the president.
yes. I didn't know they're gonna do voice video calling. That's obvious. This makes sense. This makes sense. They're not helping us organize, though. Neither organize information or organize activities, and the interface is still not helpful. It's too much.
That's what subscription should do, is get you access to private groups.
Well, it does do that, but I was thinking, why would I? I just don't see. I mean, I see subscriptions as a way of supporting your favorite authors. But I mean, if my feed ended up being a whole bunch of links to even more paywalled content, it would just annoy me. So I need to figure, I don't understand how they're going to integrate that into the experience. But I'm pretty impressed because I was thinking this stuff isn't coming out fast enough. But you know, the other thing that bothered me is $1,000 for an organization seems a lot of money. Am I wrong? They probably chose it on purpose.
That's monthly, and I imagine it's to bootstrap the process because the people using it at first are gonna be working through all the bugs of it. But
I don't think so. I think it's to keep people out of it.
well, yeah, it's a barrier to entry,
Right.
$1,000 a month plus $50 per account that you're housing underneath their organizational structure.
I think it's to keep people out.
For sure, to keep it small so they can service the accounts that are using the function at first.
So funny how they don't understand how I mean, because like if you're listening to Francis talk about a few minutes ago about the open source and how tech works, and then if you know anything about Musk, he says, "How do I know? Run a test." And that's how he thinks, right? That's his an engineer. He's an engineer, right? Don't presume. Run a test. So if he tries something, if it doesn't work, then he pulls it or changes it. So they keep accusing him of doing stuff wrong. And I'm like, that's not wrong. It's just, I mean, Amazon runs A/B tests, right? I mean, all the time. I mean, Luke, have you ever had to do A/B testing?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Right. So, if Luke pulls up his copy of Amazon and I pull up mine, it turns out some days they look completely different.
If you're not doing things wrong, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong. The whole point. And otherwise, you're always you start cycling on what some third level person in some department thinks is going to work instead of the evidence, and you don't know. You never know. I mean, a lot of coders. I don't know how you work like this, Luke. Is that I don't actually try to code it perfectly the first time. I just try to basically get the logic there, and then I just run the compiler on it.
Right. Yeah.
And let it tell me what I need to work on.
Write enough code so that it can run, so you can see what it's actually doing.
Yes. Because you think you can think it through, right? I mean, but what you want to do is you want to think through the main logic, right? And then incrementally improve off of that. Anyway, the fact that the criticism, but I can see his reputation increasingly taking a hit. So what do you think of his?
Only by the wrong people.
Okay, so in other words, his fans are still fans.
One of the markers of being capable of responsibility is being able to be wrong publicly.
Yes, yes.
So all he's doing is demonstrating responsibility over and over again.
That's a good branch for us. Have you? So.
People that can't take responsibility can't afford to be wrong in public.
Is responsibility, we were thinking in terms of reciprocity, right? For a long time.
Right.
But I'm increasingly find myself thinking about everything in terms of responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once I think about everything in terms of responsibility, I think of everything in terms of insurance. And it's just like, okay, well, the difference between us is what we're responsible for insuring. Right? I mean, that's the big difference. And as and I keep contemplating, well, isn't then most public discourse, most of what we do an attempt to justify not taking responsibility? I mean, isn't that what the public discourse is all about?
That's the default mode of human thinking that especially women are obviously adapted for.
Now, did that depress you?
No, it just means you have to choose to pay the costs of adaptation on purpose. Your brain works to block things out. Your body does neural parsimony. Your behavioral pathways want the shortest way.
I know, but
to
that's for
reward.
you, right? We got a problem is we say, oh yeah, but we have to live in a society where people are like Martin just said, their default mode is avoiding all fucking responsibility possible.
Do we have to live in a society like that?
No, but that's what I'm asking is, has this? We've all been on this journey together for some period of time, right? And you come to these places along your journey, or where you come to these awarenesses, they're like, this kind of sucks, doesn't it? Or, you know,
I didn't mean that we live in such a society now, but that this has always been the case. And that people only take responsibility when they're trying to do so. And some can even after that.
what's the relationship between responsibility and time preference?
The more responsibility you have, the lower your time preference.
No longer, lower and longer, right?
Lower and low time preference, meaning high time preference people want things in the now. Economically, the term is confusing. Longer time frames come with more responsibility.
Right.
Because you'll learn to see the fruits of your efforts, or you're trained into seeing the fruits of your efforts.
Even if you're taking responsibility just for yourself, which most people don't even do that.
They don't even do that. So if your brain is organized to predict systems, right? Well, that's not a very immediate sense of time orientation, right? And then you get to people like us where we have extraordinary long time preference among us, right? But and then if your brain is organized to predict empathy, that's an immediate sense of time, right? And so that's an evasion, that prediction of emotional change and state as what you value, right? That just forces high time preference, short-term time preference, right?
It's immaturity. It's children. That's the frame of a 2-year-old, that their emotional state is what matters.
So the problem with a 2-year-old is they're worried about their emotional state. The problem with the feminine mind is they're worried about somebody else's emotional state. And the difference with us is we're not worried about an emotional state, we're worried about outcomes. Right? I mean, it's that simple, right?
Mhm.
So is responsibility then is partly to do with your brain organization.
I mean, it's like a prerequisite, but it's not enough.
Okay, that you keep saying this, like I got to get that. You keep saying, you keep pointing out the conditions that are necessary but insufficient on their own. Yes.
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 Yeah, so,
It's a necessary criteria, but it's insufficient. It's on its own. It's insufficient. So if I live in a group with
you can only be responsible for what you can predict.
yes,
But even if you can predict it, that doesn't mean you will be responsible for it.
so that's the time frame. Now, why do some of us care about everybody, and some of us care about edges or edge cases, and some of us care about just the people we know or just the people like us, and some of us care about ourselves? That's the population dimension, right?
That's just scope of responsibility or accountability, yeah.
But one of them's population, like how many people am I worried about, and the other one is, am I worried about them now or over time? How they
Well, so
feel?
are you worried about them because they're going to be a threat to you in the future, or are you worried about them because you care about the outcomes in their life that are positive?
Okay, so you're saying there's another,
There's more dimensions, is what I'm saying.
so one positive, negative. So then that's actually the third one, right? It's positive or negative. So that's the word. Okay. We end up with the same thing we always end up with, the ternary logic of a behavior.
Mhm.
Okay. So, but I'm gonna go back again because I just curious. So does it bother you? Do these awarenesses bother you? Or do you find them just find comfort in the explanation?
At least the world makes sense.
At least the world makes sense.
I like being an adult.
I
prefer
want
to
to
be a
play,
child.
I so want you to clarify that because that's beautiful. What, say that again?
I like being an adult. I prefer it to being a child. But that's what we're talking about here, is the distinction between being an adult and being a child. It's this awareness is adulthood. The ability to extend responsibility beyond yourself is adulthood.
Yes.
What you're talking about is the scale at which you can do that. Some people can scale that very widely, broadly. Some people can scale it very narrowly. But in order to be an adult, you have to scale responsibility beyond yourself. That's what an adult human is. We wouldn't have evolved as social creatures otherwise. We would have evolved as isolated creatures, right? That came together for mating and then separated again.
So say again, why do you like to be an adult?
So I like to make kids.
You didn't
I like
see
to
this,
grow
but
families.
we got to meet Luke's kids before the show started. He doesn't show them in public, but we got to meet the kids before, his kids are adorable. Which, if you knew Luke, you'd understand. His kids are, of course, going to be adorable. I just opened a bottle of fizzy water all over myself.
Single mothers can make kids. It takes fathers to make adults.
That's correct.
Takes them both to make families.
You know, I wrote a piece this week. The marriage is a dead institution. Just see what kind of reaction I'd get out of it.
Well, it is now because there's no reward for men.
Can't hear you, Mark. Again?
But it is dead now because there's no reason for men to get married.
There's no reason for men to get married.
Unless you care about having healthy children.
Well, you care about having healthy children, but not if it comes at your early death. You know, I mean, you know how many millions of dollars I lost? Wait, I shouldn't say anything about being divorced in front of Luke because it'll always come back on me at me as worse. But I mean, it's not hard. You know how to get rid of $10 million quickly? Get divorced. I'm waiting, Luke. I'm sitting here. I gave you the slow pitch. It was a softball, not a hard ball.
You just miss being in court from time to time. You just have to have that's your urge. It's not even about women. You just want to be in front of a judge.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall who it was, but somebody was getting divorced recently, and during the divorce, the wife found out that he doesn't actually own anything. It all belongs to his mother.
That was fantastic. All of his assets are in his mother's name, so he has nothing. It's so great.
That's fucking brilliant. No, that's really brilliant strategy.
Family trust.
I don't know why we don't do that more often. Why isn't that a more common strategy?
Because we don't have intergenerational families anymore.
Because most men still don't understand what they're signing into.
So my argument was that I don't believe the institutional marriage will survive another 15 years in its current state. I think actually the only thing that's preventing us, I sent that piece around that somebody in South Carolina is proposing ending the ability to cancel, financial canceling. Now all that stuff is built into our Constitution, but isn't it? Why don't we just spend effort on why doesn't somebody just spend the effort on reforming divorce law?
Because that would be for the benefit of the people.
Right. That would restore family. Control requires that family doesn't exist. Dependence requires that family doesn't exist.
But why would high do anything for the middle?
And you wouldn't even have to say, I mean, well, the thing is, the minute child support, which the total value is like $30 billion, it's not as much as you think it is. They only ever collect half. And that half is only 30 billion. Like, who wouldn't trade shutting down the Department of Education for as a way of having child support paid by the state? Because the state would eventually kill it, right? The state can't be played.
Men not paying it feeds the prison complex, which they love.
Yeah.
But it's not good for children.
I tell you, you're essentially considered a felon if
Yeah.
you're a divorced male.
Absolutely. Yep.
You're treated as a felon. They have all the same powers over you that they do over a felon.
Mm-hmm. They use children as weapons and shields.
Right.
I don't see even why they should be able to pay child support just to any woman who divorces, because that just adds another incentive for divorce.
Correct. And also,
Be really conditional.
well, I mean, and the reason women do that is for additional consumption, not continued investment in children, right? That they're basically trading the investment in children, given the construct of the family, for additional hyperconsumption.
Divorce lawyers consult for you to take your last husband for all he's worth and marry up best you can, and to maximize those two avenues for revenue at expense of the other party.
Yeah.
And the comments.
And the comments, yes, because it's the dissolution of the marriage. They hide behind, well, that money's for the kids.
But it's not.
I know.
No, my argument is that, up until a certain age, women earn more than men. No, it's the cities that do. So there's no need, and plenty of women say they'd rather live alone, and they demonstrate that they prefer to live alone, right, with just their own kids without having to make compromise with husband. So there's no economic.
Why should they be able to make kids if they want to live alone?
Well, I don't. That's a great question, but can we? I want to finish the economic one first, because you're making an argument that's true. I just want to do. So there's no economic argument any longer. I mean, if you can't, I would say if you can't support kids, don't have them. So then that's the second thing. So there's no economic argument for child support. All right, because you're basically what you're doing is saying I had one household with all the financial gains of one household. I'm going to split that in two. All right, and now I'm going to impoverish at least one household, if not two, because you have to run two times the households on the same amount of income. All right, great. Well, this basically dooms most men, right? I mean, millions and millions and millions it cost me. And it cost me more millions indirectly. I don't even want to get that. So, but the second thing is, why do you get to marry some rich guy, divorce him, and then get half his shit? And that's fucking obscene. So I think the problem is created a set of course, I'm saying we all think that this has created a bunch of malincentives. So why wouldn't it pass Congress?
Why wouldn't what pass Congress?
Why wouldn't restoration of liability for interference of a marriage, restoration of fault and divorce, the end of common property, the end of child support, and the end of alimony. I mean, we're not in a position anymore where there's a huge asymmetry between male and female earning.
I think it should be proposed so that we can target those who are opposed to it.
Right, so
They're just saying, oh, hey, I'd like something unethical and immoral at the expense of children and the commons. Seems like a good litmus test.
And the question is, why did those things pass in the first place? When presumably most population was against that.
well, we know why, right? There were two reasons. There was the real reason, which was to undermine the family. The second, but the claimed reason was that people were faking. See, the problem was divorces were prohibited instead of, right? Whereas we just needed to maintain liability for ending the divorce. So people were faking things like infidelity in order to get the state to allow them to get divorced. For some reason that turned into, which I won't go into, it turns into now no fault divorce. And that seems to be to make it easier for the court and cheaper for the litigants. Well, just, that sounds really nice when you say it, but it turns out in practice that men get. So why wouldn't, I'm going to ask the question again, and Brandon will, don't leap to the conclusion, but why would that not pass? I mean, could you actually get a committee to propose it in Congress? No. You know why?
That's the hurdle. Is
What's
to get,
the swing? I know.
to get
What's
it
the swing
proposed.
vote? Who's the swing vote? Women. So there's no way to get it through the legislature. I think it'd be useful to try, just so you could say you, all right. And then the second thing is that you're limited to the court. And so you go to the court because the legislature is afraid. You just explain to the court that the legislature is afraid to do it. And I can see the court at least accepting it. What you'd have to do is a class action. And that class action would probably have to make it to the Supreme Court. It would have to be a complete enough solution, right, to solve it. The problem is it's a better thing to have legislated than decided, right? The thing is, when it's decided, it's just reversing what was artificially put in place by positive law. And so the court's already shown that it's going back to Constitution, requiring, going back to the Constitution about natural law. The court's already moving that direction. So maybe the court would do it. But so the only reason it would get passed, we couldn't, it's for me, if you could get to the Supreme Court, it's hard to see why they wouldn't decide.
Well, I mean, you frame it as the benefits that are delivered to the family, the commons, and the children. And that's it. That's the framing of the legislation.
Well, it's unequal protection. It's unequal protection, right?
Yeah.
Violation of reciprocity. It's a statement of the it's a contrary to the evidence, right? The difference between men and women. And that's number one. The second thing is you say it's detrimental to the children, and then third is detrimental to the commons. So it's one of the worst policy decisions that have been put in place.
It's for the benefit of the state. because the state replaces fathers.
Is it for the benefit of the state?
Well, it's for their profit, meaning their perpetual running, the system of the state that supports single women and their children through the redistribution of extracting it from the previous
Okay, so
father
you're saying it
and running them through the
empowers.
public schools. Yeah.
So it's the same reason they're saying California is so screwed is because they've created such a bureaucratic industry of taking care of the poor and street people and whatever, that there's so much jobs tied up in this lie that they can't get around it any longer, because the bureaucracy wants it, because it gives them, allows them to deal with the employment of the overproduction of elites.
I'm under the impression that most jobs in America are in service to those who shouldn't have jobs. Meaning they're jobs that service other jobs that shouldn't even be in existence. There's two layers of we don't need any of that going on.
So
At least.
can you carry on with that a little bit? Because we need an example for the audience to understand.
Sure. You have a single mother whose job it is to take care of children and steal from her husband, who needs 3 social workers to deal with her 4 delinquent children.
Yes.
All right, that's a terrible feedback loop that costs a lot of people a lot of money, holds up a bunch of jobs, and we think that it's productive somehow. And it's not, it's sprinting backwards.
Right. Whereas I know my argument would be, I think Luke's as well, would be that that we would be much better off investing in how to parent and we would be much better on the education side, right? The education and training side, and stop trying to spend all this time correcting behaviors that exist only because we didn't train. That training used to be through social and church, right? Social and church was tradition, social and church, and today it's rewilding.
If we raised our kids ourselves, then they wouldn't believe regime narrative, and that's a problem.
When you look at even intact families, right? You have, if both parents are working, you've turned a single taxable income into 3 taxable incomes. So you've got the fathers, the mothers, and the child care providers are now all taxable incomes.
We used to say that all common libertarianism observation, and this is back in early 2000, that all contribution to women in the workforce has been consumed by increases in taxes. In other words, there's no net benefit of women in the workforce.
Also, it's also what the cost of them having children. So it's net negative.
Well, if we're not having children, which we aren't, then what's happening? The average household, the average cost of running a household as a single individual, especially as a single parent, is too high for the competitiveness of that person in the world marketplace. So everybody's poor.
All of our interventions are focused on the cost of children, and none of them are focused on the cost to children.
Help. Try that again. Example.
Well, it's expensive to raise children, yes, but doing it poorly is expensive to those children. In the form of their
Doing it
development.
poorly is expensive to the children and to society.
Right, exactly. So we're covering one cost, but not doing the full accounting and covering even addressing or accounting for the other costs.
So we're just extending immaturity and telling parents they don't have to develop. That goes back to, we need to teach fucking parenting, but we need to do that. We have to teach mindfulness. In order to teach mindfulness, we got to teach natural law. So I mean, we're just back in that position of the church tradition, family, and society used to keep people within a limit. And so we at least had two-thirds to 3/4 of people in pretty good condition. And certainly by the 60s, we had, approaching 90% of people in good condition. So it's, we can't just legislate our way out of it, right? We have to legislate on one hand and train on the other.
We're also going to have to punish people on the other hand.
That's but Martin likes punishing people. So do you. You both like punishing people.
Punishing people like punishing people. Children like seeing cheaters punished. Simple games. If you cheat, they take glee in your demise.
Jacob, I've been sitting here and I let you go away and come back without teasing you this time, right? Because you gave me the opportunity, huh?
No surprise.
But you're usually quiet, but you're more quiet than usual today.
Yeah, well, I've been getting a lot out of this. I can't really comment too much on a marriage at this point because I don't have any experience.
You can get fucked up like the rest of us.
Well, I've got all the knowledge going into it at least.
I don't know. I loved being married. I love my wife. I was married for 20 years. If I hadn't gotten sick, and I'd still be married to her. So, and then you got these two guys here who are happily married. So it's like you and Martin have yet to put your head in the guillotine, and I keep putting my head in the guillotine and getting it chopped off. So,
How many heads do you have?
huh?
How many heads do you have?
Well, I've just got a really thick skull, I guess. So the head doesn't come off each time. Anyway, all right. So I think we've hit our time. Have we hit our time here? 2 hours and 19 minutes. There's more to be said here about the in other words, when I said legislation isn't enough, we can fix what's wrong, but we still have to contribute what's necessary. In other words, we can take out the reciprocity, but we have to go back to retraining people how to produce a fucking family.
Can't do self-determined means without the self-determined.
Right, and self-determined requires knowledge of how to be self-determined.
And doing this at large scale will still require legislation.
I think okay. So can I ask? Let me run this by you because this is. I wish we had Noel here for this, but in general, there's a utility to the feminine model up to about age 8, and after age 8, it turns that it's you really want to have masculine influence because the child isn't capable of responsibility until 8 or 9. Right? And after 8 or 9, you're increasingly able to handle responsibility. And that's so mother is the proxy for responsibility until the child is completed. So when we talk about how would you raise children, there's basically 2 or 3 phases, right? There's the 1 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21 phases. Right. So the reason being is that whenever you talk about this subject, the women all chime in as if they're actually the experts. When the evidence is that after age 8, they're actually harmful. Excuse me, they're harmful in the absence of a man.
Yes. Yeah, I think that there's a significant role there for a healthy mother, not just woman, but a healthy mother to participate in the development of emotional regulation throughout the teenage years.
Yes.
We don't have very many healthy mothers to model that right now. So,
right, because we lost the regulation.
Yeah, even women aren't themselves regulated.
Well, I mean, after 40 or 50, they are. I mean, they can be, right? I mean, you see more of it.
Well, and they're not, women aren't, females, girls aren't growing up having to be responsible for their siblings anymore either. So they're not practicing that emotional regulation. They're not practicing that extension of responsibility beyond themselves in their development process. It doesn't even start till they hit that first kid.
So I'm a big fan of the one-room schoolhouse or the longhouse, right?
Yes.
And that's partly why.
Yep.
It's the older boys police the younger boys, the older girls police. I mean, I'm just very. I think that
teaches responsibility. That starts the training of responsibility.
It also right, but it also teaches self-reflection.
Right.
And so
also provides opportunities for adversarial competition.
yes, which is important.
Both feminine,
despite the fact that I got picked last in some sports because I was too small.
Yeah, we took away all of those pressures and then wonder why we're dysfunctional, right? It's because we're not exposed to those pressures anymore. Those pressures force adaptations, compel adaptations.
Yeah, the problem is the way we talk when we talk about it as learning through the care of others, right? By the taking responsibility for ourselves and others. That's just healthy development, right? When we say it like that. When we say it like it's adaptation, it sounds like survival of the fittest and the gladiatorial games of life,
Yes.
So whereas boys, I mean, I love competing. I mean, I don't know if every boy does, but I don't even have to win. I just want to play.
When the reframe is, it's not survival of the fittest, but it's elimination of the unfit. And what we're talking about here is unfit behavior, not
Right.
unfit people. And we want to eliminate the unfit behavior.
So what are we misprioritizing? Right. First of all, we know putting kids in seats to learn by lecture is a bad fucking idea. Right. What you need is the order appropriate for whatever it is you're doing.
Yes.
Right. And we know that physicality, verbalization, physicality, imitation, action, verbalization is as important as listening. Right, you want to. So we know all these things. So why can't? What am I trying to get to? Is that we're trying to shove all this information in kids' heads that can basically be learned by watching fucking videos at all, right? And whereas we're not teaching them what's most important, which is life skills.
Children,
is that correct?
Yeah. Children learn the basic skills, grammar, math, logic, and so on, like at their own pace, up to when they start developing like compatibility, up to when they hit puberty. We need to beat that curve. But most of them, like, they get there by the time they have to get there. You don't have to rush it or force it or sit them down or make them do it. You just put them as part of a group and then afford them some guidance where they need limits. That's less teachers. It's less nonsense. It's more agency for the kids. It's more time to do whatever you like with your family.
It's more community and navigating competing interests, conflict resolution, negotiation, all that gets built into that process.
Yes.
None of that takes place in the school system, the approach to schooling we're doing now.
They've taken the same approach with the institutions as we have with people. We've specialized them too hard. They're not permeable. They don't touch each other. There's not mixed classes. We're trying to build a resiliency in people, and you don't put them around all types of people who have the same exact dependencies as they do. and hope that they get over those. I
But
need a
there are mixed passes, but mixed in the wrong way, mixing the two.
yes.
Yeah, diversity should be horizontal or vertical, not horizontal.
Yes.
Problem is teachers are, they're too far gone. I don't think we fix them.
No. Well, there's
They believe the wrong thing. They've been taught the wrong way to do it. And what we're asking them to do is harder. Right. Where I'd rather have like 4 or 5 teachers in a room, in a one-room schoolhouse. And then the kids are just progressing as they can, but they're all learning behavior.
I'd love to be able to call the older generation back in out of retirement. Sorry, we were joking. We need you for another 10 years. Right?
I bet you that would be easy.
Yeah,
That's what
the model we're talking about is exactly the model that my family uses. We homeschool, right? But we find other homeschooling families and create cooperative arrangements where our kids are all engaged with each other all the time, and that parents provide learning opportunities. And I've brought up that organization that's local to us here, that Hero organization, and that there's actual teachers there teaching subjects, and it's a la carte. You go in and any of the students within an age range, right? I mean, it's, you're not teaching physics to kindergartners, but within an age range, and you can pick and choose what classes your kids are getting, and they're in these classes with groups of different, student developmental levels, right? I mean, so they're doing that one-room schoolhouse thing, and that's basically the whole model that we're using for education now with our kids is that one-room schoolhouse model. So I find it hugely impactful to have that exposure between developmental stages, between dependence level stages, right? I mean, it makes a significant difference in the competence of the children engaged in that.
Right.
I can trust my children in ways I don't see other parents trusting their children, because they're exposed to the requirements of developing responsibility in ways that other kids are not being.
Can you give some examples to help the audience?
Sure. Well, it's like, there's this notion now that kids can't be left alone or left to their own devices for any extended period of time, right? And that makes parents have to be the constant entertainer for their kids. That's just not the case in our house. I'll give my 6-year-old a task, and then I'll check back in with her periodically to see how it's going, but I don't need to stand there as the enforcer to ensure the task gets done.
Because she's got enough mindfulness to be able. Yeah, they keep saying kids have. I love this is my favorite. Can I riff off that, because that was really well done. One of the things I keep hearing is I heard this from a teacher the other day. Said, but kids have 8-second attention spans. What you mean is they have no mindfulness, right? And why do they have no mindfulness? Because they haven't developed the ability to self-regulate.
Right. Yeah, kids will only listen to you for 8 seconds.
Yes.
And because they have phones.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But like one of the things in this group of kids that we do as part of our homeschool group, the kids decided they wanted to build a fort, hammers, nails, all that kind of bunch of wood, stuff like that. There was, I don't know, parents that were on hand if they needed help with something, but otherwise it was a self-directed activity.
And how old are these kids?
The youngest is 4 and the oldest is, I think, 12.
Great.
And there's, I think 20 of them that were involved in this project, and they spent the day constructing a wooden fort, using all the tools and everything. There was no catastrophic injuries or anything. Somebody would smash their thumb with a hammer or something like that, but that's the learning process of that kind of dynamic. You're not going to get that experience in a public school with those age ranges and them having to regulate each other in that process.
The thing I love about what you're saying is I'm imagining how fun it would be to be a 4-year-old,
right?
While the 12-year-old is teaching us, is teaching. Just imagine how cool that is.
Right. And imagine the pressure it puts on that 4-year-old. And I'm not talking about negative pressure, but the pressure it puts on that 4-year-old to reach into it, to expand themselves and step into a contributory role in that engagement beyond what their current ability is. Even, I mean, there's just a drive that it creates in them to participate to a greater extent and a greater degree because they're getting feedback directly from peers and peers they look up to in a situation like that. And that's all day, every day.
Are you guys following some method that's written down somewhere, or is it just what you guys?
Yeah. So, our curriculum methodology is that we use Charlotte Mason as the
Yes.
as the foundational model. We deviate from it significantly in a lot of ways, but that's kind of the underlying direction we use for the curriculum itself. So,
And did you go through a lot of other curriculum?
yeah, I mean, we've used and taken a bunch of them, and really, it depends on the kid too. I mean, we'll pull pieces of this and that, depending on what the kids are exploring and what their interests are, and kind of their temperament. You know, it all fits in. That's one of the nice things I find about homeschooling is that each kid's education is tailored to their needs and how they best respond, and so I don't have to shove all the kids into a specific model. So.
So, you know, I just know that there's some kids, they just like listening and being programmed.
Yep.
Right. Right. And their memories work like that. So it's fine. For me, I was like, I liked school because I could listen all day and absorb this stuff. It was sort of like entertaining.
Mhm.
Right. And I can remember everything. So just no big deal. But what I prefer to do is I prefer to pick a subject and just eat it until it's done.
Yes.
And you see that behavior seems to be more the low context switching.
Right.
Seems to be more effective, especially if kids are like, I want to learn, of course, the dinosaur truck robot thing, you get
Right.
those are toys, but in school, kids all learn sort of differently. I mean, I would just go to, even in college, I would just buy the fucking textbooks, read them all the first week or two,
Right.
and I'm just going to class for the rest of the year.
Right.
And so, it's more of like, so I guess what I'm trying to get across is the social aspect of school was important to me. Right. I didn't actually need the education.
Right.
Does that make sense? Whereas other kids, the social aspect of school, and they don't want the education, and that other kids, you're all over the place, right? And so Mason's she wrote that a long time ago, right?
Yeah. The emphasis with that one, what we like about it is its focus is on heroic storytelling.
Yes.
That's kind of the underlying theme for that whole methodology.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it, our approach is we're never not learning, right? I mean, my young kids are they're truly, I got a 4-year-old and 6-year-old. They're learning fractions because they're measuring out flour for baking bread on a daily basis, right? I mean, it's stuff they're exposed to all the time. We don't have to sit down and have a class about how to add 1/2 to 1/2 because they're doing it every day. Right,
Can't remember back then. I remember that one part of fractions bothered me for like a month. I can't remember what it was. I remember the experience. I'm like, something here doesn't make sense to me. I lack the ability to explain to the teacher what it was. It's not like I can remember when I said induction doesn't exist, right? I mean, I can remember that and why, but I can't remember why fractions were hard. The fractions weren't hard. This, whatever it was, whatever we were solving for, had something to do with where the X was, you know.
Right.
And I don't know why. I'm like, why is this hard for me? Why am I having a problem figuring this out? And of course, it was something stupid, I'm sure, in the end. So, all right, we've run up out of our time here. So, anyway, so to summarize, we can legislate a repair of what's gone wrong via legislation of the courts, right? We can fix the problem of the family malincentives, but we still have the problem of providing the skills necessary to be a person who's mindful and competent. Is that the basic answer?
Yeah.
Right. And is the education system the right way to do that?
No.
What's the right way to do that?
Parents.
So what?
We
Parents,
can't
right,
fed post.
What'd you say, Martin?
We can't fed post on YouTube.
I don't get it.
Suggest illegal action.
Right.
Oh, no. I wasn't.
We're talking about solutions. There's some we can't discuss.
So
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to teach people that think they're adults now how to actually be adults. Is where it has to start.
does anybody not want to do that?
Then first we have to get them to admit that they're not adults,
Right. Yeah.
which is probably the hard part.
And that point, children start have if you. I always go back to the Schoolhouse Rock. Is that you set an expectation in the children of what to expect from the parent, which I find somewhat humorous.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, anybody got anything else they want to close with? Because we've run up our time here.
Good.
Jacob, you got anything?
Oh no, I've been very busy the last couple weeks.
So how did you do seducing your professor? Is that what you were trying to do? Have I got that wrong?
no,
I got that wrong, don't I?
no, it's just it was exam season, end of April, so I finished my last one, and then I got to move out of my apartment in a couple days, so I've been pretty busy.
Oh my God. So, and is it when you move out of your apartment, where do you go?
I'm going back to my hometown. I'm about 5 hours away.
Now, are you graduated now?
No, should be next year.
Next year? How come? Okay. How do you feel you did on your exams?
I think I did pretty well for the effort I put in.
All right. Well, congratulations on completing the year. I still can't
Thank you.
believe that fucking young. So I was talking to Rudyard the other day, and it's like he says, "Oh, I love that you understand what I'm talking about." I'm like, it's because you're fucking educated. You mean it's just like the problem is the amount of knowledge you have to do what we do is just not common. It's unfortunate. And you're fucking young, and look at what you're doing. I mean, I think you're amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm working on trying to articulate it in this format. I do think my strength is mostly in writing. I'm starting to develop more of the comfort.
Yeah, that takes, honestly, if you did it every day for a year, you'd be fantastic. That's all it is. It's like writing. If you do it, you get good at it. I'm a blabbermouth, so it's not a problem for me. Martin?
I'm the same, as you know.
All right, we done here? We done for the day? Thank you for a fun meeting. That was really great. I think he sent a link out to us to where the page is, so we're good on that. Anyway, have a great day, guys. Thank you very much. I guess Brandon and Martin were on for tomorrow for the thing. And sorry about this week, Luke. I changed blood pressure medicines last weekend, and I don't know what it did, but it made me not very good on Monday. Anyway,
I get it. I'm not good for your blood pressure. Understand?
well, no. Okay. All right. Love you guys. Brandon, you good? All set? All right. Love you guys. Have a great day.